Week 14 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few wideouts I looked at off the wire this week. The first guy, Elijah Moore of the Cleveland Browns. Elijah Moore, it's been a lost season for him in his first year with the Browns, no doubt about it. Right now, available in 57% of fantasy leagues, and this was the best game of the season here for Elijah Moore. Week 13 at the Rams, 4 catches, 83 yards on a whopping 12 targets. So him and Joe Flacco obviously have rapport going back to their New York Jet days last season. And Elijah Moore, we know he's a deep ball threat. We know he's a pretty good route runner. And this season, he just couldn't get in sync with all the different quarterbacks in there for Cleveland. Obviously, Deshaun Watson, then P.J. Walker a little bit, Thompson Robinson, and now his 4th quarterback of the year, Joe Flacco. But like I said, I think Flacco should start the next game for the Browns. They were moving the football up and down the field. And he's got a good matchup here as well as Elijah Moore in Week 14 versus the Jaguars. They give up the 9th most fantasy points to receivers. And also with Amari Cooper leaving that game with a head injury, it looks like he could be the number 1 wide receiver this week is Elijah Moore. And definitely a receiver to give an air to this week. The next receiver, Alec Pierce of the Indianapolis Colts. Pierce last season, he was pretty decent, I thought, in his rookie season. And this year, we didn't see anything from him before a big breakout game, Week 13 at Tennessee. 3 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. So right now, Pierce, we know he's a deep ball threat. We know he's a big physical target and a physical receiver, especially in the red zone where he can make plays. And over the last couple weeks, Josh Downs, his numbers have gone down. And Alec Pierce's numbers have gone up. So right now, after coming off a nice game and being a good threat for Gardner Minshew, hitting him on 2 deep balls, including a touchdown in last week's game, he's available right now in 98% of fantasy leagues. And if you want to catch lightning in a bottle, possibly, I would give Pierce an ad this week. The next receiver is Jonathan Mingo of the Carolina Panthers. So the Panthers, obviously the worst team in the league record-wise, 1-11 on the year. Jonathan Mingo is a player over the last few weeks that I'm saying to keep an eye on. And now he's getting total opportunity and playing the majority of the snaps. Week 12 at Tennessee, 4 catches, 60 yards. And Week 13 at Tampa Bay, 6 catches, 69 yards on a whopping 10 targets. So I know Week 14, a tough matchup at the New Orleans Saints. They give up the 3rd least amount of fantasy points to wide receivers on the season. But Jonathan Mingo out there in 94% of fantasy leagues. This team obviously going nowhere this season, and they're going with the youth movement and seeing what these young guys have for next season and the remainder of the season. So right now, if you need some receiver depth and a guy who's getting opportunity, Jonathan Mingo is definitely an ad this week. The next receiver is Devontae Parker of the New England Patriots. Made a wide receiving core over there in New England. Juju Smith-Schuster not really doing much this season. Demario Douglas, he missed this Week 13 ball game versus the Los Angeles Chargers. And Devontae Parker, he's been the healthy one in the last 2 weeks. He's been serviceable. Week 12 at the Giants, 3 catches, 42 yards. And Week 13 versus the Chargers, 4 catches, 64 yards on 9 targets. So right now, Week 14, not a great matchup in Pittsburgh, but Bailey Zapps at least a quarterback that takes some shots down the field and can move the football a little bit. Even though I know they lost the game 6-0, the weather was pretty bad, but Devontae Parker was making plays and getting targets. And this week, in desperation, obviously in deeper leagues, if you want to give him an ad, he's out there in 97% of fantasy leagues. The final wide receiver I look to give an ad to this week's John Mechie III of the Houston Texans. Tank Dell, unfortunately, he broke his leg and he's out for the remainder of the regular season, unless obviously this Texan team makes the playoffs. And Mechie, we heard a lot of offseason hype with him, a lot of speed, one of the quicker wide receivers they were touting in training camp and the preseason. And now he got an opportunity a little bit in that Week 13 game. Only 1 catch, 9 yards, and 3 targets after Dell left in that one. But Mechie, like I said, he's going to get more into the playbook. Robert Woods, his best seasons are behind him. Noah Brown, we haven't seen much out of him. So they need another wide receiver now to step up over here for this Houston Texan team. And I think John Mechie could do it with the speed, like I mentioned. Tank Dell, he was their deep ball threat and also a guy that can run the routes. And now they need another guy to stretch the field, and Mechie could do that for this Houston Texan team. So right now, well, he's available in 100% of fantasy leagues, and definitely a wide receiver that I think can help fantasy owners and possibly break out of nowhere for the remainder of the season with Dell out. The receiver I looked at this week, so that's a few wide receivers I looked at off the wire in Week 14 of the fantasy football season.